My wife cheated on me with our next-door neighbor, then sued me for half our house and $200, $0 in life savings after I discovered her affair. Now she's claiming I manipulated her into signing the property over during our divorce. I never thought I'd be the guy to catch his wife cheating, let alone find out she'd been screwing our neighbor right under my nose. It all happened so fast. One moment I was coming home from work, and the next I was staring at messages on her phone that made my stomach drop. Honestly, I had this gut feeling for months, but I kept pushing it aside, telling myself I was just paranoid. But when I saw the text from Mark, the guy next door, calling her babe and saying how much he loved their secret meetups, I knew I was right. The signs had been there, subtle but undeniable. Her phone always hidden, her changing schedules, her avoiding me when I asked questions. Still, I didn't want to believe it at first. I mean, she was my wife, Lisa, the woman I married 5 years ago because I thought she was the one. She was beautiful, ambitious, and seemed so loving, at least that's what she wanted me to believe. But then I started noticing things that didn't add up. She'd leave the house for hours without telling me where she was going, always claiming she was at the gym or running errands. Yet I found receipts for dinner dates in town, always with Mark's name on them. One night I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling well, and I saw her car parked outside the neighbor's house. I saw her in the window laughing and leaning into Mark while he touched her leg. That was the moment I knew the truth. My wife, the woman I loved and trusted, was sleeping with our next-door neighbor. I didn't storm in immediately. Instead, I waited until she got home, heart pounding in my chest. When she walked through the door, I looked her in the eyes and said, "Who is Mark to you?" She froze, her face quickly twisting into a mask of annoyance and defiance. "What are you talking about?" "You're crazy," she snapped, trying to brush past me, but I blocked her, holding her arm tightly. "Don't lie to me, Lisa. I saw the messages. I saw the way you look at him. You're cheating on me." Her eyes flashed with anger and she spat. "You're just jealous because I'm bored with your stupid job and your stupid life. Mark is better in bed anyway. You're too busy with work to notice I was unhappy." That was when I realized she'd been lying about everything. Her supposed discontent, her claims that she was just friends with Mark, that she never meant for it to go this far. The emotional shock hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. I'd always been the one to work hard to provide, to make sure we had a good life. And she was out there, screwing someone else, then denying it all like it was nothing. I wanted to scream, to break something, but I kept my composure. Instead, I told her I knew everything and that I was done. That was the first night I really saw the monster she was hiding behind her pretty face. I didn't sleep that night, replaying the moment over and over, trying to figure out how I'd missed all the signs, why I hadn't seen it coming. I felt like I'd lost part of myself, the part that believed in our marriage, in her. But at the same time, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with it, especially not without consequences. That's when the real trouble started. Because Lisa, being the manipulative, lying bitch she is, didn't just admit to the affair and move on. No, she turned everything around, accusing me of being a terrible husband, of manipulating her into signing papers during our divorce, of hiding money, and even claiming I'd somehow convinced her to give him access to our house. I was stunned. How could she spin this so easily? She's always been good at lying, twisting things, making herself the victim. And now she was threatening to sue me, take half of our house and drain our savings, $200 we'd worked so hard for, just to make me suffer. It's like she wanted to burn everything down just to feel powerful. I never thought she'd go this far. Honestly, I was starting to second-guess everything. Was I the fool? Did I miss the signs of her dissatisfaction, or was she just a bitch who wanted more, no matter the cost? The worst part, she's now claiming I manipulated her into signing the house over during our divorce, that I tricked her into agreeing to split everything. It's all a lie, but it's also terrifying how convincingly she's spinning her story. I never thought I'd be in a situation where I'd have to fight for my own marriage, my money, and my dignity, all because my wife decided to cheat and then lie her way out of it. I'm still trying to process everything, trying to figure out what to do next. Right now, I just feel numb, like I'm stuck in some twisted nightmare. But I know one thing. I won't let her win. I'll fight for what's mine and expose her for the lying, manipulative person she's become. This isn't just about the house or the money anymore. It's about standing up for myself after being betrayed so badly. And honestly, I don't know how much more of this I can take. After that night of confrontation, everything changed. I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing over every detail, every lie she'd told me over the years. Lisa acted like she was the victim, crying and saying I was crazy, that I'd been paranoid and controlling. She claimed that the affair with Mark was just a mistake, that she was bored and made a stupid choice, but that she still loved me. The thing is, I knew her too well. She's the kind of person who can lie convincingly, who can turn the tables and make you doubt your own sanity. That's what she did best, twist the narrative so she's the innocent victim. The next day, I started digging into her phone, her bank accounts, anything I could get my hands on. I found out she'd been draining our savings for months, hiding money in accounts I didn't even know about. That $200, $0 I thought we had saved for a future, gone. She'd been funneling it into some secret account, probably to fund her new life with Mark. It made me sick to my stomach. How could she do this? We had plans, dreams, a future. All of that was now just a pile of lies and betrayal. I also discovered she'd been secretly transferring ownership of the house to herself, trying to make it look like I'd signed everything willingly. When I confronted her with these findings, Lisa's reaction was classic. She played the victim again, crying, saying I was manipulative and that I'd forced her to sign papers under duress. She even claimed I threatened her, that I'd blackmailed her into signing over the house. That's when I realized she'd been spinning this web of lies all along. She's good at it, real good. But I had proof, screenshots, bank statements, texts. I showed her everything, and her face twisted in rage. "You're crazy," she spat. "You've always been controlling. I signed those papers because I wanted out, not because you manipulated me." I felt a mixture of anger and despair. How could she turn this around? How could she lie so effortlessly? I was furious, yes, but also hurt. For years, I'd been the one working late, paying the bills, trying to build a life. And she was out there, screwing our neighbor, lying, stealing from our future. I wanted to scream at her, but I kept my composure. Instead, I told her that I was going to take legal action, that I wasn't going to let her walk away with half our house and all our savings. If she wanted a war, I was ready for it. I had the truth, and I was going to fight for what was rightfully mine. That day, I contacted a lawyer. I needed to understand my options. The lawyer told me that Lisa's claims of manipulation could be challenged, especially since I had evidence of her transferring ownership and draining our accounts. I also discovered that she'd been secretly working with a divorce attorney, probably planning to push through her demands. The idea of losing everything, our house, our savings, made my stomach turn. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. All these years I thought I was doing well, providing, protecting. Turns out I was just a pawn in her game. In the days that followed, Lisa's attitude grew even more bitchy. She'd call me names, accuse me of being a terrible husband, say I'd always been controlling and that I'd driven her to cheat. Her lies kept piling up. She claimed she'd been unhappy, but I knew better. She was just greedy for more money, more power. She wanted the house, the savings, and to ruin me in the process. I couldn't believe how cold she'd become. She was no longer the woman I married. She was a schemer, a manipulator, a master liar. Meanwhile, she started spreading rumors to the neighbors, telling them I was some kind of controlling monster. She wanted to paint herself as the victim, the innocent wife betrayed by her husband. But I knew the truth. I had the evidence, I had the proof, and I was determined to clear my name. I hired a private investigator to uncover more about her financial dealings and her meetings with Mark. It was all starting to come apart for her, and I could see the cracks forming. I had to keep my cool, stay focused, and prepare for the battle ahead, because this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about my dignity, my integrity, and my future. I'm not gonna lie, it's been a roller coaster. One minute I'm furious, the next I feel helpless. The betrayal cuts deep. I never thought I'd find myself fighting my own wife in court, trying to protect what's mine. But I refuse to be the victim here. She's the one who cheated, lied, and tried to steal everything I worked for. I've got a long fight ahead, but I know I'll come out of it with my head held high. Because no matter what she claims, I know the truth. And I'll make sure everyone else does too. After I gathered enough evidence, I realized I had to act fast. Lisa was making moves to solidify her claim on the house, and I could see her lawyer pushing hard to get everything signed over in her favor. I couldn't let that happen. I contacted my lawyer again, and we drafted a cease and desist order, demanding she stop any further transfers of property until we had a court ruling. I also filed for an emergency hearing, trying to freeze the house and our joint accounts. I knew she'd try to spin this as me being controlling or aggressive, but I had to protect what was mine. The day of the hearing was a nightmare. Lisa showed up looking smug, her lawyer smirking as if she already had the victory in the bag. She tried to paint me as an abusive husband, saying I'd manipulated her into signing papers and that I'd been secretly hiding money. Her lies were so blatant I almost laughed. My lawyer presented all the evidence: texts, bank statements, the transfer of ownership documents. When the judge saw that Lisa had been secretly funneling money into her own accounts and transferring the house without my knowledge, her entire story fell apart. The judge was straightforward. He issued an order to freeze any further transfers of the house, and he demanded Lisa provide a full accounting of all the money she drained from our accounts. I felt a wave of relief, but it was short-lived. Lisa's lawyer immediately started arguing that I was trying to control her, that I'd manipulated her into giving away the house, and that she was the real victim. She even claimed I'd threatened her during our marriage, another outright lie. The courtroom was tense, but I could see the judge wasn't buying her stories. He looked directly at Lisa and said, "Mrs. Johnson, your behavior suggests you're attempting to manipulate this court. We will review all the evidence carefully." Meanwhile, I was feeling a mix of exhaustion and hope. I knew this was just the beginning, but at least now I had some legal protections. I also knew Lisa's plan was to keep lying, twisting the truth, and trying to turn everyone against me. She's good at that. She's always been manipulative, even when we were married. I had to stay calm, stick to the facts, and let the evidence speak for itself. That's what I did. I stayed silent most of the time, letting my lawyer handle her accusations. I knew if I responded emotionally, I'd just give her more ammunition. I had to be strategic. In the days following the hearing, I started to piece everything together. I found out she'd been working with her lawyer behind my back, trying to push through a settlement that would give her half the house and all our savings. She'd even hired a private investigator of her own to dig up dirt on me, trying to show I was some kind of financial predator. But I had my own proof that I wasn't hiding anything, that I'd been the one supporting us all these years. I wasn't perfect, but I was honest. That's what she kept trying to deny, that I'd somehow manipulated her into giving up her rights. It's just more lies, and I was starting to see through her entire game. Meanwhile, she was getting more aggressive, calling me names, trying to guilt-trip me into giving her what she wanted. She'd scream that I was ruining her life, that I was a controlling monster who never loved her, but I knew better. I knew she'd been planning this for months, maybe even longer. Her affair with Mark was just the tip of the iceberg. Behind her tears and accusations, I saw a woman who was willing to do anything: lie, cheat, manipulate, to get her way. And honestly, I felt disgusted. I'd always believed in her, tried to trust her, and now I saw her for what she really was: a selfish, manipulative bitch who didn't care about anyone but herself. I started to think about what my next move should be. I was tired of fighting, but I knew I couldn't give up. I had to keep pushing for a fair settlement, for the truth to come out. I also started to think about how I'd rebuild my life after this. The emotional pain was still raw, but I knew I had to stay strong. I couldn't let her win, not just in court but in life. I'd always been the one working, providing, trying to make everything better. Now, it was time to stand up for myself. I also realized I'd been blind for too long. I kept making excuses for her, telling myself she was stressed, busy, or just unhappy. But the truth was, she was selfish and manipulative, and she'd been planning her escape for a while. It's hard to accept that the woman I loved and trusted turned out to be someone who'd do this to me. But I learned a lot from this, about trust, about the importance of protecting yourself, and about not letting someone else's lies destroy you. I've come to accept that I can't change what she did, but I can control how I move forward. And I will. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of legal battles, mounting stress, and a constant feeling that I was fighting a losing battle against someone who was willing to lie her way out of everything. Lisa's behavior only got worse. She'd call me late at night, screaming about how I was ruining her life, claiming I was a monster who kept her locked in the house and manipulated her into signing over the house. She'd send me endless texts filled with accusations, lies, and guilt trips, trying to make me feel guilty for exposing her. Honestly, I started to wonder if she even believed her own lies anymore, but I knew better than to let her manipulate me. I stayed calm, kept my evidence ready, and refused to get dragged into her emotional chaos. At the same time, I hired a private investigator to dig into her activities. I wanted to know if she was still seeing Mark, if she was secretly trying to sell the house behind my back, or if she was planning something worse. It didn't take long. The investigator uncovered that Lisa had been meeting with a lawyer of her own, drafting up more settlement papers, and even trying to contact potential buyers for the house. She was desperate to get rid of the property before the court could freeze it. It was clear she was planning to run, or at least to make a quick sale and disappear with the money. That realization made my blood boil. She was scheming behind my back, trying to cheat me out of my rights, all while pretending she was the victim. I went to court again, this time seeking a full injunction against her attempting any sale or transfer of the house. I also demanded full disclosure of her financial dealings. The judge was skeptical of her claims that I'd manipulated her into signing the house over. When I presented my evidence, screenshots of her affair, proof of her draining our joint accounts, the transfer documents, she looked visibly shaken. Her lawyer tried to argue that I was trying to control her, that I'd forced her into signing papers, but the judge wasn't buying it. The court ordered her to produce all financial records, and we set a date for a full hearing to settle property division and the financial dispute. Meanwhile, Lisa's attitude grew even more aggressive. She started accusing me of controlling her, claiming I'd kept her isolated and forced her into the affair. She even said I'd threatened her during our marriage, trying to paint herself as the victim again. I couldn't believe her audacity. Deep down, I knew she was just trying to distract from her own guilt. She was desperate to salvage her reputation, what was left of it, by painting me as the villain. I stayed silent through most of her accusations, knowing that the truth was on my side. I had the evidence and I was determined to stay focused on that. One day, I discovered she'd been secretly trying to get a loan against the house, planning to take out cash before the court could freeze the property. It all clicked. She was trying to drain whatever she could to make sure she walked away with as much as possible. That's when I decided enough was enough. I contacted the bank, flagged her attempts, and worked with my lawyer to tighten restrictions. I also started documenting everything, every call, every message, every move she made. I knew she was desperate and I had to be prepared for whatever she'd do next. The emotional toll was enormous. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. I'd always believed in honesty, in loyalty, in building a future together. And now I was staring at a woman who'd thrown all that away for a quick affair and greed. The hardest part was facing the fact that I'd been blind for so long, making excuses for her, convincing myself she was just stressed or unhappy. But she was just selfish, completely self-absorbed and willing to destroy everything for her own benefit. That realization hit hard. I had to accept that I couldn't change her, only myself. I had to move on somehow from the wreckage she'd left behind. In the midst of all this chaos, I started to focus on myself. I went to therapy to deal with the emotional fallout, and I began rebuilding my confidence. I realized I'd been giving her too much power for too long. Now, I was taking that power back. I also started reaching out to friends, to family, and even to a support group for people who'd gone through similar betrayals. It helped to hear others' stories, their struggles, their victories. I learned that I wasn't alone, and that I deserved better than someone who'd lie, cheat, and manipulate her way through life. Looking back, I see how much I've grown from this nightmare. I'm not perfect, and I still have moments of anger and sadness, but I'm stronger now. I've learned to trust my instincts, to stand up for myself, and to recognize the red flags early. Lisa's betrayal was a wake-up call, one I didn't want but definitely needed. I know I'll never forget what happened, but I also know I can move forward, rebuild, and find happiness again. I just hope anyone reading this, who's in a similar situation, knows. Don't ignore the signs, trust yourself, and never let someone else's lies define you. The court proceedings dragged on for what felt like forever. Every hearing revealed more of Lisa's lies and manipulations. She kept insisting I was the controlling one, that I'd forced her into the affair, that I'd hidden money and threatened her. But every time she opened her mouth, I had new proof to shut her down. Her lawyer tried to spin the narrative, claiming she was a victim of my controlling ways, but the judge saw through her. The evidence was clear. She had been cheating, draining our savings, trying to transfer ownership of the house, and scheming behind my back from the start. One of the most shocking moments came when I uncovered her plan to secretly sell the house to a friend of hers. She'd been in contact with a real estate agent, trying to push the sale through without my knowledge. I caught wind of it just in time and immediately told my lawyer. The court issued a temporary order blocking any sale or transfer of the property, and I demanded Lisa be held accountable for her actions. That was the point where I realized she was willing to go to any lengths to get what she wanted: money, freedom, and revenge. Throughout all of this, Lisa's attitude only worsened. She became more aggressive, more manipulative. She'd call me names, accuse me of ruining her life, and try to turn the neighbors against me. She even started spreading rumors that I was abusive, that I'd controlled her so much she had no choice but to cheat. It was all lies, but it hurt nonetheless. I knew her game. She was desperate, cornered, and trying to save herself at my expense. I refused to fall into her trap. I knew the truth, and I was determined to fight for it. I also learned that she'd been secretly working with her lawyer to push for a settlement that would give her half of everything, including the house and our savings. She'd even threatened to sue me personally if I didn't agree to her terms. I was furious. How could she be so calculated, so ruthless? I realized that her affair was just a symptom of her greed and desire for control. She didn't care about the marriage, only about what she could take from it. That realization made me more resolute. I wasn't going to let her walk away with my life's work. Meanwhile, I started to piece together her entire strategy. She'd been planning this for months, waiting for the right moment to strike to make her move. She'd been grooming the neighbors, spreading lies, and secretly transferring assets. Every new piece of evidence made it clearer that I'd been right all along. She was not the innocent victim she claimed to be. She was a manipulative, selfish woman who would do anything to get what she wanted, and I was just the fool who trusted her. One of the hardest things to accept was how much I'd invested emotionally in this marriage. I'd given her everything: my time, my money, my trust, and she'd repaid me with betrayal. The pain was overwhelming. I'd always believed in honesty and loyalty, but she'd shattered that illusion. It's hard to admit, but I felt a deep sense of loss, not just of the house or the savings, but of the person I thought she was. I had to remind myself that I deserved better than someone who would lie and cheat her way out of everything. Despite it all, I kept pushing forward. I focused on the legal battles, on collecting more evidence, and on protecting my interests. I also started to rebuild emotionally. I read books about betrayal and recovery, attended therapy, and leaned on my friends for support. I realized that I couldn't change her, but I could change how I responded. I refused to let her define me or ruin my future. Every day was a struggle, but I knew I was stronger than her lies. I was determined to come out of this with my dignity intact. Looking back, I see how much I've grown. This nightmare has taught me not to ignore the signs, to trust my instincts, and to stand up for myself. I know I'll never forget what she did, but I also know I won't let it destroy me. I've learned that no matter how bad someone hurts you, there's always a way to pick yourself up, rebuild, and move on. I hope anyone reading this who's going through something similar understands. Don't let the betrayal define you. You're stronger than the lies, and your future is still yours to shape. The final court date finally arrived after months of back and forth, lies, and legal battles. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, but I knew I had to see this through. As I sat in that courtroom, I looked at Lisa sitting across from me, her face a mix of anger and desperation. She thought she had won, that her manipulations would get her everything she wanted, half the house, all our savings, and a clean break from her betrayal. But I had the evidence, the truth, and the law on my side. I felt a strange sense of calm, knowing I had fought hard and stayed true to myself through all the chaos. The judge listened carefully as my lawyer presented the final pieces of evidence: the transfer documents, the bank statements, the recordings of her attempts to sell the house secretly. Then Lisa's lawyer tried to argue her case again, spinning her usual lies about control and manipulation. But the judge cut her off. He reviewed everything thoroughly and made his ruling. The house was awarded to me outright, and Lisa was ordered to pay back the money she drained from our joint accounts, plus interest. The court also dismissed her claims that I manipulated her into signing papers, citing ample evidence to the contrary. When the judge announced the verdict, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I had fought for what was rightfully mine, and I'd won. It wasn't just about the money or the house. It was about standing up for myself after being betrayed so badly. Lisa looked furious, her face contorting as she realized her plans had failed. She tried to protest, but the judge was firm. "This court finds in favor of Mr. Johnson," he said, "and orders that all claims against him be dismissed." As I left the courtroom, I felt a strange mix of emptiness and liberation. The battle was over, but the scars remained. I knew I'd never forget what Lisa had done, her lies, her affairs, her greed. But I also knew I was finally free from her manipulations. I had reclaimed my life. I realized that I was stronger than her betrayal, that I had the resilience to move forward. I was ready to start fresh, rebuild what was broken, and find happiness again without her. In the days that followed, I worked on healing. I sold the house, split the proceeds fairly, and started focusing on myself. I found new hobbies, reconnected with friends I'd neglected, and even started dating again. It's been a long road, but I've learned a lot. Most importantly, I learned that trust must be earned, and that sometimes people you love can turn out to be the biggest liars and cheats. But that doesn't mean you have to be a victim forever. You can rebuild, stronger and wiser than before. Looking back, I wish I'd seen the signs sooner, but I also realized that some lessons only come through pain. I hope anyone going through something similar understands this. Never ignore your instincts, document everything, and don't let anyone manipulate or lie their way into your life. You have the power to stand up, fight back, and reclaim what's yours. Because in the end, your integrity, your dignity, and your future are worth more than any betrayal. And no matter how dark it gets, there's always a way out. Sometimes, you just have to be brave enough to take it.